Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar, The Future of Productivity in Logistics. We are excited to bring you two renowned thought leaders, my Visma colleagues Therese Sletten and Larsen. In the first part of this webinar, they will share their insights, latest technology trends, and present two extremely powerful technologies that have already transformed many industries and will have a profound impact on the logistics industries too, optimization and robotic process automation. My colleague Steven Schouten, who is leading the business development activities for hyper-automation in the Netherlands, will translate their insights into the Dutch market situation. My name is Sikko Brakema, I'm the marketing manager at Visma Connect, and I will organize the practicalities of this webinar. Before we start, some housekeeping. On the upper right-hand side, you see two tabs. The chat tab is public, meaning everyone can post in the chat and messages will be visible to everyone. The question tab is for questions to the speakers and can only be answered by hosts and moderators. The agenda of today is as follows. We start with the introduction. Well, the introduction is almost over now. Then technology for the 2020s with Larsen. After Therese will talk about optimization and robotic process automation. And last but not least, Steven Schouten will provide a short summary and an introduction to the Dutch market. And thereafter we have room for questions and answers. So now I give the stage to Christian. Christian, thank you again for being here and good luck with your presentation.
Thank you so much. If we can go to the first slide. It's great to be here today to meet all of you. I want to talk about a few technologies that I think are going to have a major impact on all our lives in the coming decade. And if you go to the next slide, those two technologies that I'm going to talk about today is APIs and AI. And I think these are two words to know for everyone. And if you're not into this computer language from before, I'll just briefly explain what each word means. An API, if you go to next, is basically a way for one computer program to talk to another computer program. You can see if you're using a computer program today as a user, you typically have a user interface where you point and click on buttons, you enter text, you enter numbers. Well, an API is a way for a program to do that same thing. And the other technology that I'm going to mention today is AI. If you go to the next, an AI basically means having machines perform tasks that normally require human-level intelligence. And as we will see, combined, these two things are extremely powerful. Let me show you by walking through a brief example. Go to next. And the example I want to talk about today is something that all companies have to do. They have to, if you go to the next, look for new customers. And I'm going to show you how we can use APIs and AI to automate that process of finding new customers. And that is something we can do today that probably wasn't that easy to do only 10 years ago. So if you go to next, how do we find new customers? Well, it's basically this process here. And this is just a simplified process. It's one way of finding new customers, but it's something that a lot of companies do. So first, we can find contacts on LinkedIn. We search LinkedIn for people working in a certain country, certain type of business, certain type of company. And what we then want to do is to contact them. And in this case, we're just going to design and print a personalized greeting card for that contact. And then finally, we're going to deliver that card in person, or at least by hand delivery, to the person to sort of start building a relationship to be able to sell something. And this is something that a lot of companies do. So it's sort of like a personalized search for new sales prospects. So this process 10 years ago was pretty much manual. You'd have to first go on LinkedIn yourself, if you even had access to LinkedIn. You then have to call a designer to design a personalized greeting card. You could do it yourself, but if you want it professional, then you have to go to a designer. And then you would call a printing company to print the card for you. And then you would call perhaps a delivery company to pick up the card at the printing company and then deliver it to the prospect that you found. Now, it turns out that today we can do this in a much more automated fashion. So for example, finding contacts on LinkedIn. Well, if you go to next, there are many ways of doing that automatically. If you go to next slide, next click. We have, for example, a service called Amazon Mechanical Turk, where people are sitting waiting for jobs to be done. And we can submit those jobs through a computer program. So we can make a computer program that has a button that says find contacts on LinkedIn. And that button will send a message to people, Amazon Mechanical Turk, which has a pool of hundreds of thousands of people sitting waiting for jobs. And they will go in and do the job, find contacts on LinkedIn, and they will return what they found to the computer program. So we can pretty much do this through a computer program completely automatically for you as a user. And what about designing and printing a personalized card? Well, here we also have a lot of options today, because this computer program that I'm talking about can do the same thing. If you go to the next, we can you actually automatically design a personalized greeting card today? Yes, we can use a service, for example, called 99 Designs, which has an API where you have thousands of designers throughout the world just waiting for jobs to be given to them through an API, through a computer. So this computer program that we're making, it can, after it has found the contact, it can send the name of the contact to 99 Designs, and a designer will pick it up, make a greeting card, and send it back to the program, all without you as a user doing anything. And then after you have the design for the card, you want to print it. And if you go to the next, well, actually, most of the printing companies already today have a printing company API. So the computer can just send the card through the printing company and then have it printed. And then finally, you want to do delivery. Well, if you go to the next, if you're a sophisticated delivery company today, you will also have an API. You can tell the delivery company through a computer program to pick up the printed card at the printing company and deliver it in hand to the contact you found. So you see that it's pretty much possible to automate the simple process today. And that wasn't really possible just 10 years ago, because you didn't really have the APIs in place. And you look at this example, and if you go to the next, and you think, what actually happened to the world here? Just look at what we did right now. If you go to the next slide, what we did was to tell the computer to tell what the sales prospect researchers do on the Mechanical Turk. They are sitting waiting for instructions from a computer. They're giving their results back to the computer. We had the computer tell what the designers were going to do. So the designers are sitting on 99 Designs. They're waiting for instructions coming from a computer, from an API, and they're giving that result back to the computer as well. The people working in the printing company, well, they are also taking instructions from a computer, from an API, and giving it back to the computer when they are done by actually giving it to the delivery company, which also has the drivers in the delivery company have also received instructions from an API. So you see that computers are sort of telling all these people working in the companies that are doing these services what to do. And that is a pretty interesting and perhaps a little bit scary change. And if we draw this up a little bit more schematically, if you go to the next slide, you can see that this actually applies to a lot of different jobs in society. They are sort of between two computers. For example, just as I mentioned, the designers in 99 Designs, they're taking instructions from an API, and they're giving the result of their work back to the API. And when you look at it, actually, more and more jobs are becoming like this, where you have a human in between, doing some task, taking input from the computer, giving the result back to the computer. And what's really interesting about it, and it's been this way for many years, we've automated paper processes using computers. We did that in the 80s and 90s, and this has been going on for many years. But what's really interesting these days is that we are now entering a decade where we can really accelerate what is possible to do with this technology. And what makes it really supercharged is, if you go to the next, because we we now have sophisticated artificial intelligence that can learn a lot of different tasks. It can learn to, for example, look for contacts on LinkedIn. It can learn to design a personalized greeting card. It can learn, almost to do a lot of the delivery tasks. It can, do perhaps some of the printing tasks that the people in the printing company did before. And you can just put the AI next to a person doing the job, and you put it there for maybe 1 or 2 years, and then you get into a situation where the AI can do the job just as well as a person, and you end up in the situation on the next slide, where the AI can basically take over the entire person's job. And this squeeze is something that we think a lot of people are going to get into over the coming years, and it's just going to be a natural development happening because we have more APIs, and we're going to have APIs everywhere, and we're also getting those more sophisticated AIs. And that is actually going to have a huge implication for jobs. In fact, if you go to the next slide, just in the Netherlands, the estimates vary a bit, but they say that between 2 and 3.1 million jobs could be displaced by automation through doing it in this type of automation in the Netherlands by 2030. So that is quite a dramatic change, considering that you have about 10 million jobs in Netherlands. That's 20 to 30% of all jobs can be affected by this development. And if you go to next, well, then you can ask, well, why is this happening now? And I want to just give you a flavor of what is happening inside AI that allows us to do this now when it wasn't possible before. And one of the things that really have changed in AI and is developing is, if you go to next, this concept that an AI can now learn to transform a sequence of something into another sequence. AIs are becoming really good at doing that job, taking in a sequence of some things and outputting another sequence. One example is, if you go to the next slide, translations. So translations have become a lot better due to AI technology and AI development in this field. When you think about it, translation is just taking in a sequence of words and outputting another sequence. So you can, for example, translate from English to Dutch, like we do in this example. But what's also interesting about this new technology that's emerging is that you can also use it to complete things. So if you go to the next slide, you can train the AI on a lot of data, on a lot of different sentences, and then it will be able to complete sentences for you. So you can say, after I complete the form, I should, and then if you trained it on enough data, it will be able to say, the natural next step is that you send it to the transportation crew. It's actually even more sophisticated. You can use it to complete stories. So if you go to the next slide, here's just a story which you can give to an AI, and this is a real example. So you give the AI as input this short story here. Kim and Jennifer are 2 scientists working in the Antarctic who just uncovered a large block of blue ice. And Kim says, have you ever seen anything like it? And Jennifer says, never. Let's crack it open. And Kim says, is that smart? You give this story to the AI, and if you go to the next, you'll see that the AI is actually continuing to write the story. So it says, absolutely. Kim says, all right. Then they begin to slice open the large blue mass with a chainsaw. And then Jennifer says, look at this. It's even blue on the inside. That's amazing. Kim says, hold that thought. This thing is making me feel dizzy. And suddenly the entire thing begins to glow. And it's quite amazing that an AI can sort of continue a story like this. And it's not perfect today. If you continue the story long enough, it will start not making really a lot of sense towards the end. But this is a start of a development that we're seeing exponential growth in. These AIs are becoming exponentially better and also exponentially less costly to actually run. So this is the start of something that is going to develop over the next decade and is going to lead to automation of jobs. Because if you go to the next slide, you can ask, well, why does this actually matter to me? Completing stories, translating between languages, logistics companies. But when you think about it, a lot of the tasks that you will do in a logistics company probably has this same form, that is taking in a sequence of something and outputting another sequence. You could imagine that it could apply to order management, to inventory, to transportation, to warehousing, to materials handling. A lot of jobs inside any company have this characteristic that you're taking in a sequence of something and outputting another sequence. And if the AI becomes good enough at doing just that, more sophisticated at doing it, then you can automate a lot more. So if you go to the next slide, what do you actually do? So as a company, how do you play this game? What should you do to position yourself in a world where this is becoming more and more prevalent? And I'd just like to end by giving you 3 thoughts. And the first thing that I would say is really important is, if you go to next, to stay what we call above the API. So if you are a company today and you don't have APIs, then you risk being in a position where your company is basically taking orders from an API that someone else has made and giving the orders, giving the output back to that API. So think about, like, put yourself in the shoes of a person who is writing a computer program who wants to use your company's services. Can they do that easily today? If they cannot do it easily, there could be a chance that someone else will make that service easily available, and they will actually be in a controlling position, and your company will sort of just become a little bit of a slave to the API. And that's probably not a very good position to be in. So you really want to provide good APIs for your services, because that will allow your company to be a part of this new economy that is going, and be a part of the automation revolution that is happening. So that's really important, I think. And if you go to the next slide, another thing that is quite important is to avoid wasting data. Your company is producing a lot of data, and data is, the small pieces of truth that you can either choose to use and collect, or you can choose to throw it away. And if you're going to build a great AI, if you're going to have these more advanced services, if you're going to have an advantage over your competition, you have to collect the data. And you may not know exactly what it's going to be used for right now, but it's guaranteed that in order to build these great AIs that will emerge in the future, you have to have a lot of data, and that is a big asset of your company. It's not an asset that shows up in a balance sheet or anywhere else, but it is something that to really think about how you manage and how you take care of. And if you go to the next slide, the third point is to actually invest in AI initiatives. Try out new experiments, stay on the edge, see where the current technology can fit inside your company. And maybe you also create a small roadmap. Maybe you'll say that, okay, this is not possible with today's technology, but in 5 years, probably it's going to be possible. How do I prepare for that? And these 3 points, they apply to any company in the world, and they also apply to Visma. And these are actually the principles we use in Visma to position ourselves for this future. And to tell you more about what we're doing specifically, if you go to the next slide, I'd like to give the word over to Therese Sletten, who's the Director of Strategic Initiatives in the Visma Group, to talk more about some examples of what we are doing.
Thank you so much, Christian. As Christian said, I will now talk about optimization technology and also robotic process automation in Visma, and also show you some use cases for these 2 technologies. Both of these technologies can also be seen as hyper automation, so you can go to the next slide. And the hyper automation has been on the Gartner list of top 10 strategic technologies, both in 2020 and now in 2021. And hyper automation allows organization to automate a wider range of processes. And if you want to be in the front line of technology, you don't miss this train. So you can take the next one. Yeah, so let's start with optimization technology. What we want to achieve with optimization technology is to solve complex mission critical problems for our customers. And I will now go through some use cases in Visma in these areas. So let's start with the route planner. The route planner optimizes the allocation of workers to tasks and also create the best route for each worker. And what we see there is that we see like a 10% efficiency gain for our customers so far. We have now launched this in the healthcare sector in both Norway and Finland, and also for the craftsman business in Norway. But we also are looking into other markets for these technologies. So maybe the next country will be the Netherlands. So you can take the next slide. The next example I want to go through is the shift and project planning. This can be a very time-consuming process for some industries. And one example there is the hospitals. There, for example, we have doctors, we have nurses, we have rooms, and we also have a lot of restrictions. For example, that you can't work after a night shift and so on and so on. And then it's very difficult for like the planners to schedule this manually. And we see that they used actually up to like 14 days in some hospitals previously. But by using optimization technology, they have now reduced this to the minutes instead. And another good thing with it is that we also see that the fairness in these schedules have also increased up to like 50%. And also that they have better shifts with like 20% as well. These solutions are launched in Sweden and Finland at the moment. The next solution that I want to go through is the kindergarten admission process. This is only launched in Norway at the moment, and as I understood from my Dutch colleague, this is not so relevant in the Netherlands, but it's more relevant for like school admission. But what we do there is that today, like parents are like applying for different kindergartens in Norway. They can have, for example, 5 different choices. And then the municipalities in Norway are now doing this manually by going through all these applications and then find the best setup for the kindergarten. But by using optimization technology, we have automated that process for the municipalities. So for like a mid-size Norwegian municipalities, they previously used up to 400 man days on this process, but this is now reduced to seconds. And what's even better is that the parents also get a better solution for their children. So we see that we also have increased the quality by 12%. And also we have more satisfied parents. So you can take the next slide. We have now also started on a new solution on the inventory management part. And what we want to achieve here is to reduce the cost and also manual work in this area. And we are now looking into 2 different solutions that will be launched during 2022. And that is to forecast on demand based on historical sales and out-of-stock data, and also create an optimization engine that optimizes what, when, how, and how much to order for like different companies. And this can be applied for all kind of businesses. And in the pilot phase that we are in at the moment, we both have like a chocolate company, but also a production company that creates how to say that in English, cars in Norway as well. You can take the next one. The next part I will go through is the robotic process automation. And what we want to achieve there is to reinvent the way you are working through automation. We often combine robotic process automation also with machine learning to do it even more effective. So you can take the next slide. This is not something new. So as you can see, Gartner predicts that by 2022, 90% of all organizations globally have adopted RPA. So this, I would say, is a must-have at the moment to be competitive. And I will now go through some examples. You can take the next. So what can a software robot do? Actually, the software robot can do all kind of manual, time-consuming processes, from like simple calculations to open emails and attachments, to log into applications, move files and folders, and so on. But let's look into a practical example in the next slide. Here we have created a bot called Bot Anna that is working for the Norwegian hospital group called Helse Sør-Øst. And this is quite a simple process because in Norway, in the hospitals, we have a lot of claims. This can, for example, be travel claims. And by law in Norway, for all claims, they need to be approved by two pairs of eyes. So in this process, we remove one of these approvals by setting in a robot. So as you can see, now it's only the manager that approves, and then it goes directly to a automated robot, and then the employee get paid. And by putting in that robot, they have an efficiency saving now of 60 to 70%. And by having like 80,000 persons working in this hospital group and over 300,000 claims, they could now reduce this claim department from 75 people to 25 employees. So that's quite good, and I can now use that time for more like value-adding tasks. The next one is a video that we will show, and this is about, you can stop it at the moment. In this video, it's about absence refund, and how we can do that also in an automated way. And after this, Steven will go through some good example in the Netherlands and summarize this webinar. So, Siko. I don't think it's any sound.
Applying for a refund is time-consuming and repetitive. However, it's business crucial. Luckily, we've automated the process, and now our digital worker.
I started again.
You can, but Visma, we work daily on finding ways to automate our customers' business processes. Why? Because we still see many businesses struggling with loads of manual work, and we believe that humans are the best ones suited for tasks involving analysis, problem solving, and people contact. Let's look at an example. When employees are sick and absent, it means additional work. More specifically, manual work. Handling absences and applying for a refund is time-consuming and repetitive. However, it's business crucial. Luckily, we've automated the process, and now our digital worker handles the job. It can, by the way, work 24/7 without any coffee breaks, and lets you focus more on what you do best. This is just one of many examples. To learn more about artificial intelligence and automation in Visma and read about other cases, visit our webpage.
So, and after this movie, we now have Steven. Welcome to this webinar, Steven, and take it away, please.
Yes, thank you, Siko, and also thank you, Therese, of course, for your story and some very concrete examples of use case that we have today. So thanks a lot for that. So I'm going to give you a small summary of what we've discussed already, and also put it in combination with some trends that we see within the logistics sector. And to start it off, I would like to start with some figures. So if you can go to the next one, please, Siko. So based on a study within the logistics sector, we came to the numbers in these slides. The studies, I think, was on 2019. And they probably look familiar to a lot of you, but I'm showing them anyway because I do want to emphasize how important the logistics sector is for the Netherlands. And it's also, of course, good to know for our audience from abroad today. So logistics has a key role in basically any aspect of businesses and consumers. So whether you are buying a package on Amazon personally or import your inventory from China, everybody and everything is affected by logistics. And that is what makes this sector so interesting to work with and to work for. So if we can go to the next one, please, Sikko. So looking at this sector, we've identified 5 megatrends in November 2019, actually, in preparation for the ICT and Logistics Summit, together with the iShare data sharing initiative. These trends are still very relevant today, even though we came up with them in 2019, and in some cases even become more relevant than they were. We will briefly go through them to see what is going on in relation to these trends and see what technology might aid in overcoming the challenges presented by these trends. So we go to the next one, we go to the first one as well. So the aging workforce population. At the end of 2019, 41% of the employers in road transportation report a labor shortage, and 20% of the workforce is between 55 and 65. But it means a huge part of the employees will retire within 5 to 15 years. So what can technology, as we discussed today, do in this case? Well, of course, we have the autonomous driving trucks that might help. However, that's not per se the thing I want to talk about. What we are thinking about within Visma is how to use the people that we do have to do the same job, but more effective than we do now. So the tool that Therese just showed as well, the planning tool, might be a good way to deal with this. She said an efficiency of 10%, which of course is huge, especially if you look at the numbers which are showed in the first slide today. So furthermore, the overall population is also aging, meaning that there will not only be a driver shortage on the short term, but also for qualified people overall. Using tools like hyperautomation, it can help to aid employers with doing their job, employers with doing their job, letting them do the tasks that they are good at, and let the more mundane tasks being done by machines. So if we go to the next one, please, Sikko. And then we're going to talk about sustainability. Because of Corona, it sometimes looks a little bit like sustainability has been put on hold. But don't be fooled by this, because sustainability is still very much a topic that we need to think about. Customers are becoming more aware of what is admitted, and also governments are taking action to become CO2 neutral as quickly as possible. And it includes the Netherlands. For us in the Netherlands, this will mean from 2023 onwards, companies will need to report to emissions to the government. Something we already see in, for example, Germany or Sweden. We notice that quite some parties are not fully aware of this mandatory requirement that's coming up, but it's really good to already start thinking about it and prepare for it as well. And it's not only the government, of course, that will request the information. Consumers and businesses alike are becoming more demanding in what they want to know regarding CO2 emissions. They need to know exactly what a shipment is emitting concerning CO2. And this means not only calculating the emissions, but also allocating them to the right things. So allocate them to the right shipment, transportation method, or any other factor. Also, by doing this, of course, you create a clear insight with the data you already have to be able to steer on the information and reduce it toward the future by, for example, smarter planning to reduce, for example, the empty mileage that your trucks run. So if we go to the next one, Sikko, the disruptions. Of course, another big trend, and of course, something of all ages, but it seemed to become more impactful in the last few decades because of a longer global supply chains. For example, two of the hardest hit companies within the Fukushima, it's a very difficult name, disaster, were General Motors and Ford, two American-based companies, United States. And then, of course, we have the COVID pandemic, which I think we have heard more than enough about in the last year. So I'm not going to cover that one, but I wanted to say the following, because it's extremely difficult, of course, to deal properly with these kind of events, because they are unexpected and they can be there all of a sudden. But in some cases, you can be prepared. Take the Ever Given incident, for example, where the ship blocked the Suez Canal. Thousands upon thousands of shipments were delayed because of it. Knowing this, of course, the people, including myself, who expected a shipment, will ask themselves, is my shipment affected by this event? Since there are probably millions of expected goods on these ships, there are potentially millions of questions of where are my goods and how does this affect my delivery? Imagine having to answer all of these questions, or even already a small part of these questions. This will quickly become mundane because they're all the same. Having a tool like automated email responses, for example, or even better, a chatbot on the website, it will take the pressure of the people at your service desk and all while maintaining a quick and personal way to respond to the questions of your customers. If you can go to the next one, then we go to the Industry 4.0. Zico. Yes, thank you. It's quite a big buzzword, or actually quite a combination of big buzzwords, so IoT, intelligent robots, and other smart technologies. But with global interconnected supply chains, of course, where factories talk to ships and ships talk to warehouses, and they in turn again talk to the trucks to get the right products at the right place at the right time. It brings a big need for cross-party communication and a visible supply chain. These machine-to-machine interactions will only increase in the future. It will bring challenges like how do we exchange data in a secure and safe way, but it also brings opportunities. The data we generate will only increase and can be used for further improve the supply chain and make it more effective and efficient. And that's also something, of course, that relates to Christian's story before. So if we go to the last and the fifth one, then we talk about the machine-to-home delivery. So e-commerce businesses operate at 24/7. So due to robotization, automation, e-commerce operations are like machine-like in efficiency and speed. To give you a very concrete example, last night at 12 o'clock, I ordered some tea from Amazon, and an hour ago I received a message, it just got delivered to my home. This kind of speed, ease of use, and flexibility I will start to expect with my next order as well. Whether it's my personal order at Amazon for the second time, or when I do an order for the company I work for. Being able to organize your process entirely automatically will save a huge amount of costs and time, all while being flexible and able to respond to the demand of the customers rapidly. And also this connects very much, is in line with Christian's story earlier. So logistics companies really have to keep up with this trend to remain competitive in an already very competitive market. So those are the 5 trends and a small summary of what we talked about. So I want to close off with actually a final note. Because logistic companies have a lot of very complex processes that need to be done. Processes that generate extreme amounts of valuable data. And what is important actually to realize is that you have access to this data. You can use it right now to improve your business. So today we have discussed some solution that might sometimes look a little bit complex and daunting, but please do not let this turn you off, because every new development starts small, and you can start with that today. So thank you very much, everyone. Then we can go to the question and answer session. I'm not sure if there are any questions, Zico.
Yeah, as I said, first let me unmute myself before I relay the questions to you. I see Harold Brinch asked whether we will share a recording. He couldn't make it today. We will share a recording to everybody that's subscribed to this webinar. Then I see a question from Kim Jordholm. I think it's for Therese. It's about inventory management. Does optimization factor in stuff like weather, holidays on variable days, local preferences? And he has seen those factors from logistics in Co-op Denmark.
Yes, absolutely. That's something that we are looking into. For example, in this company that I said create chocolate, that they are of course season based, like it's a lot of chocolate sales in during Christmas and Easter and so on. So we need to take those into account in the model.
Yes. So Kim, is that enough answer for you? Yeah, it's fine. Is there anybody else who has a question? Not at the moment.
I see that Kim also are talking about the blockchain, so maybe I know that you are having that, Stephen, as well, so maybe you can comment on that.
Christian, can you comment on that one, please?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, maybe if you say we'll expect blockchain solution to become a game changer too, because blockchain has a very wide variety of appliances, and so maybe it's if Kim could explain or detail his question a little bit more, then it would be easier, I guess, for us to give an answer to this question, because. Does he mean is it the blockchain to
yeah, well, maybe I'm just gonna interpret it in that one,
yeah.
and also for creating a more visible supply chain in this case. So in regarding the visibility in this case, there's a diamond. I forgot the name, but there's a diamond company who post all their diamonds on the blockchain. So every diamond they delve, they have a serial number on it, and they put the serial number in the blockchain. So if then I have to buy a diamond for whatever reason, I can see exactly where that diamond is delved, where it then has gone to. So who shipped it, for example, who then transported it to me to the Netherlands, and even if there are any other owners. So by making that entire supply chain visible in that case, I know for sure it is not some blood diamond from Africa, but it's actually a diamond that's delved in a legal way. So indeed, that's quite a game changer in that regard, because it makes the supply chain potentially very visible. And also, of course, I have to make a little bit of a remark because one of the Tony Chocoloni did a pilot with this as well, basically with the use case I just explained, but then for the chocolate. And they stopped this the pilot. So there's still a lot to do and some uncertainties from company to company. But yes, I do agree that blockchain is potentially a big game changer in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah, as they say, if you allow me a little joke, they say blockchain is the technology of the future and always will be. I have a question for Therese from Peter Jaspers. Therese, were parents involved in the case to select a kindergarten position for their children based on qualitative criteria next to optimization criteria?
Yes, it was the same process to apply for the kindergarten. So they still had the same 5 criteria. So actually what we did to compare the 2 solutions was that we agreed with these pilot customers that they should first run the selection process as they used to, and then they should use the Visma optimization model afterwards. So that's why we knew that they used these 400 man days, for example, and then just seconds afterwards. So it's exactly the same selection process or how to apply for kindergarten. They still have 5 different choices. But after or with the Visma solution, they now get one of those priorities instead of maybe don't get any of them, as a lot of parents in the previous solution.
I see that currently there are no questions, but people are typing. So, Therese, thanks very much. Sounds like a very useful solution for the Netherlands as well. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, and maybe it's also good to say that it's a very that these solutions are not only limited to kindergarten or school admissions, but that they can also be used for all kinds of planning. Drivers to they call it. Did you assign drivers to routes or trucks to DCs or everything that you want to plan and assign to people. So especially for the logistics, this is a very important and powerful tool. Yeah. And a question from Ralph. Danish Rockamore use blockchain to improve traceability. I think it is a very good case for blockchain in general. Oh, that's a remark more than a question. So I think that if nobody has a question anymore, I'm just checking one time. Oh, a question from Victor. What are good selection criteria for a company to select their first case for automation? Maybe that's a good question for Christian.
Yeah, I think actually Therese has done many of these projects inside Visma, so do you perhaps have some good tips to share?
Good selection criteria, yeah. How we often map the processes is we first look at how much time we use on the different processes in Visma, and then typical processes with a lot of like manual steps that is time consuming is very good for automation. And it can also be like between system as well, because especially in, for example, BPO or like finance and HR departments, they are doing a lot of, find some information in one system, they need then to copy that information over to another system and so on. And this can be done by a robot instead.
I guess one tool would be to sort of look at your processes today and just draw them out, make boxes, arrows, and how much time are you spending in each box? How much of that is manual? Map out the processes that you have, and then you quickly see where you have some potential. And you want to perhaps go for some of the areas where you're spending a lot of manual work, and also possibly where the work is quite simple to automate. There's work that requires advanced automation and a lot of AI, and there's work that really doesn't require that much of an AI at all, but is actually something you can do something with very simple. And we see usually there's a lot of those cases as well.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be that advanced.
Yeah. And if you are part of like a bigger company, you also, of course, have these solutions that you can buy, these process mining tools that you can add to the computer, and then these tools suggest which processes to automate as well.
Yeah. So a question from, I hope that I pronounce it good, Ari Kilpelainen. An interesting company in relation to automation and logistics is Starship. Are you keeping an eye on their progress? And then it's the website starship.xyz.
I've heard of them a while ago. If I'm not mistaken, it's the delivery service for food in this case. And remember back then I was thinking about the Amazon drones delivering the packages, and I thought they were shut down by Americans when they were delivering it. So it's definitely interesting, and if it works, that's great. Delivering food by a door by a robot. So I'm not really keeping my eye on it, but I'm aware of their existence.
Yeah. A question from Peter Jaspersen. Would Visma be open to a no cure, no pay approach with RPA projects, identifying customer benefits first?
Yeah, can take that. I think we're open for a lot of different models. We like, of course, that the goal is to save, you money and time. So we're open to all kinds of models, and we've done all kinds of models in the past.
Yeah.
We're seeing that in general in the software industry as well. We're going more towards this type of pricing that is based on the value that you're actually getting out of it. So that would be a natural step. But it's not for everything yet, but certainly something that we've seen more and more of over the recent years.
Yeah, and maybe you could also think about a subscription model. So as soon as you don't feel that it gives you any value anymore, you can end your subscription.
Yeah.
So then you would have a very good incentive to really work together with your client and yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we are now past the 50-minute mark. So if there are no questions anymore, then I would like to thank Peter, Ari, Victor, and all the other people that asked their questions to us. And I would, of course, like to, on behalf of Steven and myself, like to thank Christian and Therese for their time and their presentations. Normally, if we had an in-person seminar in a room, we would now present you a bottle of wine or a gift card for a book. But as soon as we see you one day in the Netherlands, we make sure that you get one. So I thank you very much for your time, and all the people that attended this webinar. Also, thank you very much for being with us this afternoon, and we hope to see you in some other webinar. And then